This is the book of Ecclesiasticus, of the book of Sirach, chapter 10, starting at verse 1, and it reads, "A wise judge will instruct his people, and the government of a prudent man is well ordered." Verse 2, "As a judge of the people is himself, so are his officers, and what manner of man the ruler of the city is, such are all they that dwell therein." I want to start off by giving all praise, all honor, and all glory to Elohim La Yahweh, by Hashem Yahushai, by Hashem Kodash. Double honors to the elders, to the apostles I learned this truth from. Peace and salutations to the Akim across the four corners of the earth, pushing the truth with faith and with sincerity, as well as risking their lives and the freedom to do so now more so than ever. Shalom to the Akim and the Aqua, thought they're listening and learning. Lord willingly, this is edifying. Shalom to the Israelite foreigners scattered abroad in the land of other nations, appearing like the other nations, for whom subscribe to this truth. To you, I say shalom. It's Brother Yahweh coming at you with another lesson through the Spirit, through the power of Yahweh by Hashem Yahushai. And pretty much this lesson is I came across this article and it caught my attention, so I figured I'd do bring out the information and go from there. So it says Charlie Kirk calls for full military occupation of American cities once we liberate D.C. This is out the Independent, and pretty much, you got a lot of the MAGA, Trump supporters that are, pretty much no longer in agreement with DJ Trump. They found out or figured out that pretty much this man, sold them a dream. But you got also a lot of individuals that still trust in, believe in, and are with his agenda. A lot of these Edomites, they don't care what's going on and what's happening to, the so-called migrants. They don't care about, it's a particular guy, he an Edomite. I can't think of the name of his channel. And the funny part is, he tried to come across like he talks about how he was locked up. You could tell you got a low size to him, and pretty much he was a part of the AN, the Aryan Nation or whatever. But he'll make it sound as if like he was cool with black people. But jail politics is pretty much, whatever nation you is, you stick to that nation. So long story short, though, he was saying how alligator Alcatraz pretty much, because it's some leaked footage supposedly spilt where they were showing the conditions and they were showing the food and the food. He was talking about how jailhouse food, the food that they were eating was basically trying to make it seem as if like they're being taken care of way better than they should be being taken care of. But I just saw an article where it says pretty much the courts pretty much said that they would have to actually heighten the standards of the facilities. So which one is it? Again, never trust the devil. Never trust the devil, the deceiver. It says MAGA influencer Charlie Kirk celebrated President Donald Trump's Liberation Day takeover of the nation's capital by calling for the Trump administration to unleash a full military occupation of other large American cities once we liberate Washington, D.C. And pretty much, who's to say who this dude is? More than likely an insider. And at the end of the day, we all know what they're promoting. Trump is hinting at making the troops in Washington, D.C. Last longer than 30 days. All these different things is wordplay and verbiage to let you know that we in martial law. You know what I mean? And that's the thing. These people are so brainwashed. These people, the shit right in their face, but they refuse to see it for what it is. And what appears to be spurred by the recent late-night attack on former Doge employee Edward Big Balls. I heard Jake talking about this. He was like, "Look at the idiocy of this Big Balls, huh? Corstein, who was allegedly assaulted during an attempted carjacking. Trump announced on Monday that he was deploying 800 National Guard troops and temporarily taking control of Washington's police department to fight crime in the city." Yeah, that's martial law. It says our capital city has been, and say who's to say that stage situations, Just like, with the whole assassination attempt, you know. Says our capital city has been overtaken by violent gangs and bloodthirsty criminals, roving mobs of wild youth, drugged out maniacs, and homeless people. And there go that homeless people again. And we're not. So basically, they're criminalizing the homeless. Out of all these different things, that you're gonna name the homeless, he lumped the homeless in there. And we're not, some wicked this way comes, and we're not going to let it happen anymore, Trump exclaimed on Monday. Despite violent crime falling for 2 straight years in Washington under the current chief of police, the president likened the city to the worst places on earth while repeatedly framing it as a dystopian hellscape. Having already deployed thousands of National Guard troops to Los Angeles earlier this summer to quell protests that erupted over his immigration raids, Trump also suggested that other large cities and Democratic-led states such as New York City and Chicago could be next. And the thing is this, this whole, they're talking about creating a National Guard force that pretty much can be roused up and basically sent out to quell protests and whatnot very quickly. They're talking about they're debating on that. I heard the Pentagon, I know it's an article on Newsbreak that's basically, I didn't get a chance to read it, but I'm hearing videos and brothers speaking on it and whatnot. The thing is this, why do you think they trying to create such a force? Because they know they about to bring in, they about to do something that's going to make people protest. At the same time, as the New York Times noted, the president did not mention cities in red states, which much higher murder rates than Washington. And this kind of pisses you off, like the brother was saying, because, at the end of the day, it's like you questioning this shit, but who gonna speak up on it? You know what I mean? Like, you know, you believe in your democracy so much where your voices matter, and you go start talk to your state politician. Well, why? Your representatives ain't doing nothing about any of this because the commander in chief just pretty much is a dictator. He the king of Babylon. This is the king of Babylon, that cruel lord. At the same time, the New York Times noted the president did not mention. I read that part. Much higher murder rates in Washington, and he also ignored the most violent episode in the capital's recent history, the January 6th Capitol riots. Shortly after returning to office in January, Trump issued a blanket pardon of hundreds of rioters, many of whom had been convicted of violent crimes and were serving time in prison. Because at the end of the day, it's showing you he looking for loyalists. He said he was going to pardon them people if he became president, and he came and he was true to his word. He pardoned them, and that goes for everything. Though he want loyalists. In order for you to get any help from this government, you're gonna have to pretty much show your allegiance to this place. During his podcast on Monday, Kirk, one of the president's most loyal media acolytes and founder of the MAGA youth organization Turning Point USA, urged Trump to send more American military forces into other cities in short order, claiming it would create favorable press coverage. I guarantee the crime's going to go way down, he proclaimed, and then the media will say, oh, it's only going down because he brought in the military. Exactly. We need full military occupation of these cities until the crime ceases. Period. Claiming we have a big teenage problem of crime in our country. Kurt specifically I knew he was going to say Chicago, spotlighted Chicago as a problem area before demanding that more teenagers be given decades-long prison sentences for auto thefts. Sounded like DJ Trump himself, you know what I mean? Simple fix. You steal a car, 25 years in prison. The pro-Trump pundit raised. I don't care if you're a teenager. I don't care if, I was raised without a dad. Well, you're going to go meet a new dad in jail. We're done. We're not putting up with it. We need more prisons and we need more prisoners. And, when he does this crackdown, watch how many people going to be moved around, like how they doing with the migrants. Watch. When they got that shit off and sent that, I know he's Northern Kingdom. I think his name was Garcia. I think he's still out there. They sent him to Venezuela, and you got pretty much, when he was able to get away with that, that lets you know. I'm not laughing at dude because that's fucked up. That's terrifying. Yeah, they just snatch you up and yeah, okay. You ain't really a citizen. And then like I said, they lying or they talk about he part of Trent de Aragua, because it ain't MS-13. It's Trent de Aragua. I guess they basically took over, um, you know, MS-13. Simple. It says Kirk also rebuked his own support for Trump's criminal justice reforms during the first administration, saying it was a totally wrong premise and now it makes him cringe at himself. Instead, he said the country needs the humiliation of criminals and to stop cuddling criminals because they happen to be a protected class, claiming that we don't believe in protected classes in America anymore. The fuck out of here. This is the place that still, if you have any kind of criminal record, it'll affect you from having a job or getting a job. Trust me, I go through that. That's why the fuck I just lost my last job. But this supposed to be the place. This is a place full of shit. This supposed to be the place of second chances and yada yada yada. Now, don't get me wrong. You got some career criminals that literally, you know, that just 12 numbers and ain't gonna never stop, committing crimes or whatnot. That's why you got like what in California they got the 3-strike law. But the fucked up part about that law is, you anything like whatever kind of like it could be I don't know if it's a misdemeanor, but I know it like literally with that law it doesn't matter about the crime fitting or the punishment fitting the crime. If you get 3 strikes, you go bye bye. You know, I wonder if that dude Kirk Mack is a 3-time felon. Is he looking stupid? Says game over. Kirk, who recently slammed the White House's push to deem marijuana a less dangerous drug, further warned Trump not to just have the military symbolically occupy Washington, calling for a true show of force in the nation's capital. Now again, I want to say President Donald Trump, he's going to go play to win here. The right-wing activist said the one piece of caution we have to say is that if we just kind of do this symbolically, we will lose. The criminals will win. We got to go hard. We got to go big league. We're taking National Guard tanks every street. You need military. Kirk, whose rhetoric has grown more extreme, racially charged in recent years, also advised conservatives to push back on any criticism that Trump is a fascist because he's bringing the military by calling the president's detractors anarchists in response. We're not fascists. We ordered. Call them a name right back. He bellowed, "You're anarchists. You want the criminals, the thugs, the gang members, and the worst of society run the streets of D.C." After downplaying the Capitol riots as nothing more than people who wanted to go say a prayer in the U.S. Capitol in order to mock the use of the National Guard after January 6th, Kirk then concluded by name-checking which cities he wants to see under military occupation. Once we liberate D.C., you better believe it. Chicago, New York, Boston, Philadelphia, Portland, San Francisco, we got a big military. We should be willing to use it, he stated. And the thing is, I saw an article where it was talking about the crime rate here in Cleveland is more than Washington, D.C. So could we possibly be nuts? And yeah, we gonna be, what I mean? Like, yeah, of course. Justin Bieber with his whole, he trying to make this a smart city and shit, you know what I mean? Yeah, they're gonna be here. Shit, if they had ice here, what you think? Don't stop playing. So, I found that interesting, because again, you got people that's with what he doing. Just like when Jake start getting, you know, um, taken out because of, when they start policing these neighborhoods, you know, just keep that in mind that, what I mean, like keep the scriptures in mind, agree. And most people ain't never really seen, military, on the street. Most people ain't never seen military on the street. Like Cleveland, had the Huff riots, Basically, you know, at that time the National Guard had to come out there then, and Jake was so upset and frustrated they burnt down their own shit. So, when you had the Black Panthers and whatnot, or the Black Nationals, or the Black Nationalists, you know, it's a particular reason why I'm popular. I ain't gonna say too much more than that. I'm still trying to get what he said about the whole, the mayor, that basically fucked up the family business, and what I mean. I got to find that video again to listen to it, because again, that double speech shit is, you know, you think Jake be thinking they slick, talking in code, but these devils do double speak all the time. You know what I mean? Like, so they a little bit, Jake be thinking that they don't know it, but it's always somebody giving up the game. You know, you know. You'd be surprised what all Esau know. I was looking at I forgot what the name of the show is, but dude, he like a police officer and pretty the gang task force. He was going into like how Bloods, you got a sect of Bloods that literally don't wear red, they wear green. He was like, if you ever paid attention, why do Chicago, basically the Bulls, why do they sell green jerseys when their color is red? To cater to them. So Esau know a lot of shit, because it's always a nigga giving up the ghost. I mean, not the ghost, but giving up the game. So going into the book of Proverbs chapter 29, starting at verse 2, and it reads, when the righteous are in authority, the people rejoice, but when the wicked bear rule, the people mourn. And the people about to mourn, you know what I mean? What's that, Isaiah chapter 24? The mirth of the city is gone, or the mirth of ceaseth. Verse 16, when the wicked are multiplied, transgressions increaseth, but the righteous shall see their fall. And ultimately, the righteous is going to wait patiently on Yahweh Shem Yahushua, because, what's that in the scriptures? I was reading Ecclesiasticus of Sirach chapter 10, verse 3, an unwise king destroyeth his people, but through the prudence of them which are in authority, the city shall be inhabited. It says, the power of the earth is in the hand of the Lord, and in due time he will set over it one that is profitable. So ultimately, right now, scriptures tell you that the earth is given to the hand of the wicked. He covered the faces of the judges thereof, not where and who is he. Well, ultimately, this devil got power right now, but ultimately, the Lord is going to pretty much, going to come back and pretty much, the scriptures tell you the place is going to be destroyed in 1 hour, due to the ICBMs and the chariots. Scriptures talk about whirlwind and fire, and the Lord will plead with many. The Lord will plead with many. Damn, I'm butchering it, Salakia. I'm halfway tired too. And the slain of the Lord will be many. For behold, the Lord will come with fire and with his chariots like a whirlwind, to render his anger with fury and his rebuke with flames of fire. For by fire and by his sword will the Lord Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushua plead with all flesh, and the slain of the Lord Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushua shall be many. It's the book of Revelations chapter 12 and verse 12. And it reads, therefore rejoice, ye heavens, and ye that dwell in them. Woe to the inhabitants of the earth and of the sea, for the devil is come down unto you, having great wrath, because he knoweth that he hath but a short time. The book of Jeremiah, chapter 30, starting at verse 4, and it reads, and these are the words that the Lord Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushua spake concerning Israel and concerning Judah. For thus saith the Lord Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushua, we have heard a voice of trembling, of fear, and not of peace. Verse 6, ask ye now and see whether a man doth travail with child. Wherefore do I see every man with his hands on his loins, on his gut, as a woman in travail, and all faces are turned into paleness. I always think of, you see cartoons when like Casper the Friendly Ghost, and they see the ghost, and, they become pale, out of that fear, that fear, the countenance on their face changes, and they become pale faced. Verse 7, and last, for that day is great, so that none is like it. It is even the time of Jacob's trouble, but he shall be saved out of it. And who is the he? Because Jacob's trouble is not going to just be Israel's or Jacob's trouble. It's going to be all the nations' trouble that's dwelling in Babylon. Even these stupid ass MAGA people, you know what I mean? Because ultimately the goal is to get everybody in subjection to basically accept this tiny technology. So, again, you got, there's many enchantments going on. Like I said, again, you can clearly see this dude is lying. This dude literally said that it's a rebate check based on the tariffs. But you got companies losing money because of the tariffs. What the fuck is he talking about? But it's like whatever he's saying, these people just eating it up. Like the elder was speaking on it. He was talking about before he even pretty much when he was talking about bringing helping clear the streets. He said that he spoke on that in a black church, and he said to the applause of all these jakes, not understanding that literally, what's about to come with this. Again, and it's so spiritual because I grew up in that age where we would have to, we was on the corners and we read it from the police all the time, stop and frisk and all that shit, and then I watched for years when the police pretty much wasn't, it seemed like to me not enforcing anything. That's why you got this generation that's all, you can't tell them shit and they just buck ass wild, But now, you know what I mean? By him militarizing the police, a lot of Jake's about to die. And I seen the elder video. He said, pretty much it's time, they coming into the hood. Well, I didn't see the video. I seen the title of it. So ultimately, yeah, the devil about to come down with great wrath. A time of trouble like never before. This is the book of Isaiah, chapter 59, and verse 19, the point. So shall they fear the name of the Lord Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai from the west, and his glory from the rising of the sun. When the enemy shall come in like a flood, the spirit of the Lord Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai shall lift up a standard against him. Scripture's talking about, again, I read it already, the devil coming down with great wrath. So these troops going to come in as a flood. But, ultimately, those that the Lord is dealing with, his elect, he's going to lift up a standard. So either he's going to protect you, he's going to hide you, or he's going to, like the elder brother made a statement. He said, pray that the Lord hide him, protect him, or make him a killing instrument, a sharp threshing instrument with teeth. So I'm gonna end a lesson there. If you're so-called Hispanic, if you're so-called Black, Hispanic, Native American, Seminole Indian, West Indian, or Haitian, I implore you to come back to the law, statutes, and commandments of your power. His true name in the Paleo Hebrew is Yahweh. Ba'ashem Yahushai. You will be destroyed. With that, I want to give all praise, all honor, all glory to Call Haloyim La Yahweh. Ba'ashem Yahushai. Ba'ashem Kodash. Double honors to the elders, to the apostles that I learned this truth from. Peace and salutations to the Akim across the four corners of the earth, pushing this truth with faith and with sincerity, as well as risking their lives and their freedom to do so, now more so than ever. Shalom to the Akim and the Akwat out there listening and learning. Lord, willingly, this is edifying. Shalom to the Israelite foreigners scattered abroad and the land of other nations, appearing like the other nations, but home subscribe to this truth. To you, I say shalom. Till next time, I'm able to come another lesson. Shalom, shalom. Kwame Yasharallah, and Wath Lababal.